We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners at Burke Britton Financial Partners. This is the Finances podcast. So I've got a couple of guests today. We're doing a little bit differently, doing it virtually today when we've previously done it in person. We've got a couple of the team members from Aspire Lawyers. For those of you that have listened to previous podcasts, you would have heard Sarah, Claudia and Jessica on, I think, episode number 42. Today, we've got Nikita Chikohwa and Alice Growden joining us from the commercial and property teams at Aspire. So Nikita and Alice, thanks for joining me virtually today on the Finances podcast.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for having us.
No, absolute pleasure. I said just before we started recording, Nikita, that it's great to actually put a few more faces to names, and we've started to have a fair bit to do with your team over the course of the last probably 6 months, and I think it's really exciting to get to know businesses that have a similar ethos of sort of personal and professional development, and also a want to continue to improve the services that they're offering to their clients. So the way our podcasts work is that even though we're going to talk a little bit about commercial and property law, also like to know a little bit about the people we're talking to. So what I'd like to do to begin with is maybe start with a little bit of background, and feel free to go back as far as you wish to on where you were born, your history, and what brought you to Aspire in the role that you've got today. So I might start with you, Nikita, if that's okay. Tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up, and how you ended up where you are today as a commercial lawyer with Aspire.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so I was born in Brisbane, lived in Brisbane for about 10 years before we moved to Melbourne. My dad's got quite a large family, so he's one of 9 siblings. Most of his brothers live in Melbourne, which brought us to move over to Melbourne. So I was very fortunate to grow up with lots and lots of cousins, which made that really nice. And Christmas is always a big occasion for us. So moved to Melbourne, lived in Melbourne for most of my life, and went to school, did uni. I did a Bachelor of Social Science, majoring in psychology to start with, and really enjoyed it. But I think I was probably just a little bit too young to know what I wanted to do with my life, where I wanted to go. I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with that. And then, after doing some soul searching and really working out what I wanted to do, I realized that law was probably the right place for me. So went into law, didn't know where I wanted to go with it and what I wanted to actually work in. Learned a little bit about myself and where I was like, what I was passionate about. I actually started working with Clear Peers. So this is Aspire back a few years. So it was originally called Clear Peers. So I started working with them on reception in my first year of law, and did that for about 3 months before I moved into the commercial team as a paralegal. So I did that for probably about 4 years before I was admitted as a lawyer. I guess it came with a lot of benefits for me, because obviously I'd learned a lot in that time whilst I was studying as well as working. I worked a lot with Shane, who's our principal of the firm, so a lot of matters. I got a lot of experience, which has really been good for my career growth and really solidified where I wanted to be in the commercial space. So did that, became a lawyer. I was admitted in 2020. Since then, just been practicing as a solicitor. I've actually recently moved over to Perth with my husband and my daughter. And we've just set up in Perth. We've built a house, and looking looking to continue our success in Perth, I think, in the commercial team.
How did you find the move to Perth, particularly given that you've left a big extended family network over here in Melbourne? How have you found that transition over to Perth, not only professionally, but from a personal point of view?
Yeah, look, it's definitely not easy, you know, leaving everything that you know behind, your family, your friends, especially when you come from such a tight-knit family. We're fortunate that we've got enough space for people to come back and forth, and for us to go back and forth as well, which is really beneficial. But yeah, definitely not easy, but we've had a lot of, we've had my parents over recently. We're expecting my husband's parents soon. We've got friends coming and going. We've actually recently had Alice was in Perth last week. So yeah, it's been really nice to have lots of people coming and going. But I have to admit, Perth is a really beautiful place. I mean, we're in winter and it's currently 22 degrees outside. So it's not a bad place to live. So we're really enjoying that part of it.
So Alice, did you get tempted to make the transition to Perth after that little visit a couple of weeks ago?
Definitely. Well, I was there for 3 nights last week and I was with Shane, our principal, and I was telling him on the plane, like, it looks like there's an opportunity in Perth. And we've actually done a bit of networking while we were there, getting some, you know, good networks that can refer us good clients and ones that we can work together with and share the same sort of values as Aspire. So yeah, I was very jealous of the weather, and like, you wake up and it's blue sky, sun's out. Went for a run every morning. I'm not motivated to go for a run in Melbourne. All of a sudden my whole mindset's changed about my health when I'm in Perth. So yeah, I definitely am jealous. And if I had it my way, I would definitely be looking at moving across to the West Coast at some stage in the future.
Now you were actually you were born halfway, is that right? So between Melbourne and Perth, there's a place called Adelaide in the middle. I believe that's where you grew up, or at least you were born there and then moved to Melbourne a little bit later. Is that right?
Yeah, so my mum migrated from Vietnam when she was about 17. So she learned English from scratch and did her schooling in Adelaide. And then she met my dad in university. And she wasn't actually interested in my dad at the time. My dad's dad, my grandpa at the time, now, ran an accounting firm, and my mum was studying accounting, and she saw dad as a really good gateway to get some work experience. They hit it off, and eventually they got together, and she finished her accounting degree. Dad also did accounting and auditing, and they decided to open up a business. And I think there was a bit more opportunity in Melbourne at the time, so they decided to bring all of us over when I was about 6 or 7. So I was quite young. So I feel like I've grown up and done schooling through Melbourne, but my heart sort of lies in Adelaide, and I'm back there 2 or 3 times a year to visit my grandparents and my aunties and cousins, because my dad's side of the family are all there. But yeah, I'm definitely, I love the calmness of Adelaide, and Perth reminds me a lot of Adelaide. You've got that nice weather. Everyone sort of stops and says, hello, how's your day? Whereas in Melbourne, it's very go, 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 and no one wants to sort of stop and be interrupted in their day. So yeah, I do think that eventually I'll end up either in Adelaide or Queensland or Perth. But right now I'm quite situated in Melbourne. I just built a brand new house and moved in and locked myself kind of here for the next 3 or 4 years at least. And my partner, he's a bricklayer and he runs his own crew here. But then Nikita's saying there's a big growth in building and construction and subdividing and developments in Perth. So I'm like, oh, maybe there's opportunity for you there as well. So maybe our worlds will align.
I'm not trying to convince her at all.
Yeah.
So go back to your transition over from Adelaide to Melbourne, and this is probably you touched on it, Nikita, but for yourself, Alice, what was the impetus for you to move into law? Where was that decision made for you to enter into the legal fraternity? Was it always something you wanted to do, or did you fall there by sort of happenstance?
Well, my parents are accountants and they dealt with lawyers quite a bit. So I kind of got an idea of what I guess the industry was like, and I met a lot of accountants along the way. I've got a family member who's also a lawyer, I didn't know what I wanted to do throughout schooling. I did my primary school and secondary school just kind of open-minded. My mum really wanted me to do medicine and get into the health industry, and she's very traditional, like keep your maths and sciences in your subjects for VCE, and I just absolutely hated those types of subjects. I actually did year 10 work experience at Sunshine Hospital, and I was in the radiology department, and they did this very minor procedure where they were, I think, cutting out a skin cancer or something or other, and I fainted, vomited, and was sent home straight away. And I was like, Mum, I can't do that ever again. Scared me away from that type of work. And then my younger sister ended up doing medicine anyway. So I'm like, you've got your daughter, you've got your wish. So I might move on and do something else. So when I finished my BC, I was just sort of keeping my options open. It was either like TV journalism or law or commerce or a combination of the two. So I ended up getting a Bachelor of Law and Commerce, Applied Finance, and I thought, let's just see where this goes. I'll get a really good idea of whether I want to stay in the commerce field or law field after a couple of years of uni, and I guess just like bite the bullet and see how it went. And I got a scholarship as well, so it was like, if you get paid to study, why not? Like rather than take a gap year and things like that. So did the law degree and commerce degree. Realized very quickly that I didn't like numbers, and the commerce, mathsy, financy subjects really triggered me to not enjoy those types of subjects. So I ended up picking the law degree more so than the commerce. I completed both, obviously, but I did lots of internships, and I got like lots of experience through different industries and avenues of the law, like working in the state trustees. I was working at a couple of law firms during the time. I worked at Melbourne Uni at one stage doing Aboriginal treaties and native title. So I got a really good idea about all the different areas of the law throughout uni. And then I decided I wanted to work in private practice and got a job out as a graduate lawyer at a small firm working in family law, criminal law, wills and estates, commercial law, litigation, and ad hoc like IVOs, disputes and debt collection and things like that. So the generalist role really helped me understand what I liked and didn't like. And that led me to, I ended up going traveling for a little bit. So I decided, let's just, take a break, because I felt like I went from school and did 5 years, did my PLT at the same time as my final semester of a full-time law and commerce load, plus my thesis. And that was during COVID while working a part-time job as a paralegal. And I was absolutely exhausted after that semester, and do not recommend cramming everything in like that, but it got me through the door, and I graduated, got admitted by the age of 23. So I don't know why I put it into my head that the quicker the better, but I don't think that's the case. If I look back, I wish I took my time a little bit more.
Where did you travel to, Alice? How long did you take, and where did you travel to?
I took 3 months off, and I went to Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Europe, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. So I did Switzerland and Europe, UK, Amsterdam, and I've done Austria as well. And we grew up doing lots of snowboarding and skiing. So I like to chase the winter. So I went skiing in Switzerland, skiing in Austria, more snowboarding, but we call it skiing, I guess. And then I was in Japan as well at one stage skiing, and it was the best time of my life. Like I really needed that time to really get to know who I am and take a break from reality. And I came back feeling really refreshed and decided, I think commercial litigation, or sort of in the scope of having the broad business development and also having the scope of my parents and the work that they do, that commercial law was more something that I enjoyed more, I suppose, and the client work was less emotional. And I think if you compare it to family law, it's, apples and pears. And family law, I struggled to really disconnect from the work when I got home. Like I was always thinking about what was going on. There were always children involved, and I've always loved kids. And I felt like when I came across, really nasty things that had been done to the children, and where they weren't the center of the matter, I really struggled to apprehend that and come home and really release and detach from my work. So commercial law is a really nice in between, I guess, and we do get exposed sometimes to family law issues, and we do work together with the wills and estates team and family law, so it doesn't mean we're completely accustomed just to commercial law. So yeah, it's a really good setup at Aspire. But funny story, like I went from working so I worked at a private firm for a bit, and then I went to an in-house role at Mercedes-Benz Finance. So did all the debt recovery work for contracts and loans that were defaulted. And a lot of the time there was money laundering, drug money, police investigations involved. And it was a very James Bond experience, and I felt like it was a great adrenaline rush and got a lot of kick out of it. But I think long term it was not something I could sustain and come home and enjoy, and be able to disconnect as well. So I went there for a couple of months and decided that's not for me. And at that stage I was like even thinking of doing a master's of teaching. Like, is the law really for me? Like I didn't know if I fit in. I didn't feel that I could comfortably approach people and be confident in the fact that I'm a lawyer. Like, you always doubt yourself, and it's a big name to sort of live up to, and there's a stigma that you've got to be really prim and proper and formal all the time. And I felt like maybe that's just not my personality. So I gave it another shot, had a couple of interviews here and there, and then Aspire came along, and Aspire were just like, I could tell they were different from the start. There was just this vibe that it wasn't about what you know, it was about who you are, what you value, what do you want to do when you in the next 5-10 years. Like, they actually seem to care about those types of things, whereas the traditional firms that I came from were very much earn money for us or go out the door. So yeah, that's what led me here. And I guess fun facts about me: I ride a motorbike as my means of transport because Melbourne traffic's so bad, and motorbike riding is more fun than driving. And I play a lot of netball. I used to play football, women's, and then I do snowboarding in the winter, so quite active.
You definitely sound quite active. It's interesting when you were talking about when you arrived at Aspire, because I wanted to touch on sort of what, before we get into the services around sort of commercial and property law, I think one of the important things for listeners to understand is the point of difference culturally that Aspire has. It's certainly something that in dealing with you for the last 6 months or 12 months, we've noticed there is a significant difference culturally in the way Aspire operate, not only with their people, but this focus around personal and professional development that I spoke about earlier. Maybe Nikita, if you want to touch on, and I know like neither of you have had massive tenures with Aspire, but just from your own experience, having joined the team, what is it that sets Aspire apart culturally, and also in the way that they look to develop their individual human beings in the practice? So, question for you, Nikita.
Yeah, look, Aspire is completely different from the traditional law firm. For example, we work from home majority of the time. When I first said to Shane, I'm moving to Perth, it wasn't, oh, okay. It was a matter of, all right, how do we make this work? You can go anywhere in the world if you want to. He's like, I don't care if you're working on the beach for half the day, as long as you're getting your work done and things are happening. So that was, when that happened, you can imagine I would have been so scared about the thought of what was I going to do? Where was I going to go? Is Aspire going to be okay with that change? But they were so encouraging and welcoming of that. I think that's an example of the culture. But in general, I think in terms of our clients, like we genuinely care. We're invested in seeing how our clients grow, because the success of our clients, to me, reflects back on what we've done and our job. And if we can support our clients and be with them on that journey, we will create that partnership for life. And that's what for me is where my passion comes from with the law. But in terms of how we work internally, like, as you know, we recently hired Alice a few months ago, and the thought process of hiring Alice was never, okay, which of the candidates has the most experience, who is going to come in as, this amazing lawyer and just dominate. That was not our thought process at all. It was really, who is going to be the right fit for us, who has the right attitude, who encompasses our values and really lives them. That was our thought process, because in my mind, I feel like you can train anyone to do anything. You can train someone to be an amazing lawyer. Not saying that Alice isn't. She is an incredible lawyer, and we struck gold with Alice. But it's really hard to find the right people. And so having Alice come into the mix has been so good for our team and for the growth of our team. Just attitude, culture, everything is what drives a lot of our decision making internally. So it was really nice to be able to go through the hiring process with Alice, knowing that she's going to be the right fit. And I think we were really on the money with that.
Alice, you've just Nikita's given you a fair pump up there, put you on a decent sort of a pedestal. From your perspective, did you know much about Aspire before you interviewed with them? And if so, tell us about what you knew and how did that differ from what you actually saw in reality? So what was attractive to you as someone that was coming as a new member to this team?
Yeah, well, like they had a really big corner office on Watton Street in Werribee, and I drove past that quite a bit when I went to footy training in Manor Lakes every Thursday night. So I'd seen it around and I'd seen the name, and there was a bit of social media buzz about Aspire, but I had no idea that they were super different to your traditional firm, and I had no idea what the values are and things like that. Obviously did my research about the firm before I got the interview, but when I got the interview, like I was blown away. Like we did a personality test to get an idea about exactly how I would react in certain situations, whether I'm able to take on work without being stressed, and the sort of traits that I would have, and how I would fit into the team, and whether it would be compatible, I guess, to the other people in the team. So it was a very different approach, and that sort of told me straight away that this is a different type of firm. There was even on the job description in Seek, there was a video of Aspire, like a potential employer working on the beach and like having a really good time, and it was all about like the employee being really happy in the job. And I was like, oh, that's like not your usual. Like usually get recruited for a lawyer role, and you're just there to pump out work and do your 8 billable hours per day and make at least 30 grand a week for the firm. And there's a lot of pressure around that. And if you don't reach it, and if you don't do a certain thing that's within the job description, like your job's on the line straight away. Whereas at Aspire, like you can speak up, you can voice your opinion. If you think something's not necessarily the right way of doing something, or there might be a better method to the madness, then bringing that up and being able to be vocal and understanding with the team about it is like absolutely a praise rather than negative. And I think like it's not just being a lawyer at Aspire. Like we run our own teams entirely. Like Nikita does an amazing job of leading the commercial team, and she's got a really good understanding of the financial expenses per month. And we go through the budgeting at the start of each month. Like we don't have certain people who do the financing, controlling entirely, and then the lawyers just do the work themselves. Like we're completely in it, and we know what reward we'll get in the long run if we perform well and things like that. So there's a lot of personal growth, and one of the things that I thought I mistakenly said during the interview was, in 5 years time I want to open up my own business, I want to run my own empire, I've always wanted to do that. And I was like, oh crap, they're going to think she's temporary, she's only a 2-year deal, this isn't worth going down the line. But Shane said to me on the plane when we were in Perth that that's what won you the ticket to Aspire. So like they see personal traits and what you want to do in the future as opportunity. Like Nikita moving to Perth, that's an opportunity to create a client base there, create an office there, and make Aspire work around the employees and make everyone happy, but also run the business well in return. And I think like if you're treated well, which we're treated super well at Aspire, in return we get reward, and that is like trust, and we can move into different things. And if we want to take on leadership roles or like do extra work in different areas, and we're allowed to. So it's very different, not your traditional firm. We do fixed billing entirely. I don't have to worry about 6-minute increments. Like learning about financials, reading, interpreting them, making decisions about what's best for the team based on, the financial performance. And then just being able to grow like professionally and individually. Like I know more than enough now from just the 3 months that I've been at Aspire to know what it takes to run sort of a business. And like even just knowing what the expenses are just for the commercial team is super like valuable. Like you go into the workforce and you want to open up a business, like you start from scratch. And if you've only been a lawyer, that's all you know how to do the work, but you don't know how to run a business. So that skill comes from being at Aspire, but it's like so foreign in this type of industry to have that. And not only that, like when we meet clients, it's not about, okay, what work do you need done? When's the turnaround? And like, here's the transactional price. This is what we're going to quote you. It's all about, who are you? What are you trying to achieve? What business do you run? Where do you fit in society? And how can we help you, not only in the transaction that you're seeking to grow and get better and benefit you in the long run? So it's it's not about time. Like we might spend 1 or 2 or 3 hours working on a client's proposal and getting to know a client before we actually even get them in through the door. And it's because we want to know our clients like properly. We want to fully understand what their objectives are and where they come from, and what their challenges are on a day-to-day. And we want to make sure that when we approach their matter later on when they come on board, that we are doing it with with a bit of generosity in the background, and also just having a full understanding of the whole picture about where they come from and what they're trying to achieve. So yeah, it's a really different place to work, and it changed the game for me. Like I don't think I would have lasted in a traditional law firm. I really think that times are changing. Like AI is coming in. We've got different types of technologies. There's lots of like online forums and stuff that you can get legal advice from. It's not the same as what it was. And I think we're like here to change the game and disrupt the industry as well. So that's what I love about it. It's different, it's bold, you're accountable in your job and you're rewarded for it as well. So it's just like, it's enjoyment for me.
It's brilliant. And hearing the two of you talk so passionately, not only about, well, we haven't even talked about the actual sort of legal aspects of what you do, I think is amazing, because what I see in Aspire is what we are encouraged to do here at Burke Britain. We're actually building leaders. We're actually building people who want to take ownership, either physically or just personally, taking personal responsibility for their patch of dirt in the business. And when I hear the two of you talk about everything from your people to your processes, to your financials, and then the clients, that you have very well-rounded individuals that look at sort of every aspect of what it means to be in business. And I think that's probably one of the things that's lost on a lot of people when they go into a new role, is that they're very focused on maybe one particular thing. It might be they're focused on, just being profitable, like billable hours, or they're focused on the client, but to the exclusion of the people that they actually work with. And I think when you actually start to have a bigger picture of that a successful business is made up of some core elements, and you really want everyone to sort of have ownership and responsibility of that. So it's great. And I know when we spoke with Sarah and Claudia and Jessica, that same theme, it's not as though that theme is coming just from one of you, it's coming from all of you. So that culture is certainly very, very strong. It'd be remiss of us to have you on and not talk about the services that you actually offer. I know you sent through Alice a bit of a summary of the areas, but for those clients that are actually listening to this and they're thinking, listen, how might Aspire, particularly Alice and Nikita, be able to support us? What are the types of things in commercial law and property law that you work on predominantly? Where can you help those small business owners or people with their properties? Where can you help and support them?
So
sorry.
are you actually? No, you go ahead, Alice.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, on our website, a good starting point is a legal health check. And it just asks you a couple of questions about what you do, what your business is, what type of work is involved, who your stakeholders are, what your profit margin is, and things like that, and what you're trying to achieve. And then that gives us a good summary about who you are as a person, and what we might be able to do. And we could reach out and collaborate and come up with something that helps you in that sense if you're not sure about anything at all. But yeah, there is like a lot of different services involved in commercial law. It's not just your typical reviewing contracts or drafting contracts and we just type up emails all day. It's very much it's very broad. There's lots of different areas within the commercial landscape, litigation being one of them. Like if there's a dispute or you're trying to exit a business and sell your business or buy a business, negotiating the right terms and conditions for you, making sure you're fully protected, doing due diligence before you enter any sort of commercial contract or arrangement, whether it's with your neighbor, whether it's with your business partner, whether it's with your client. There's all these different types of partnerships and engagements that you could enter throughout your life. And it's really important, I guess, to just get a peace of mind that someone's looked over the arrangement and it's in writing and you're protected from a legal perspective, and you're able to move forward with that confidence without having to feel like, oh, have I done something wrong? Have I, lost all this money that I've invested into this share or something like that? So there's lots of different areas. And I guess, like, just to name a few, like, we can send letters of demand for money that's owed to you from a family member or a client or anything like that. And even like if you're building a house and the builder hasn't handed over the keys by the deadline as per the contract, and you've let things slide and you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, at some point you need to make a decision that it needs to put them on notice. Like, you need to get someone to put something in writing to be able to move forward from those types of transactions, because ultimately it's affecting your life. Like, you're not able to move into your house, you're not able to start seeing the benefits of the mortgage that you're paying on the repayments and things like that. So getting a lawyer involved at that stage is a really good idea, just to get some peace of mind. And it also gives a third party perspective on the situation, and we give you advice about the situation. And we're also able to correspond with the builder or whoever the debtor is on your behalf, rather than you having to confront those types of confronting conversations. We also draft and review leases, landlord-tenant disputes, franchising, drafting franchise agreements, drafting lease agreements, reviewing all of those types of things, buying, selling businesses throughout the whole process of facilitating what's necessary in order for you to go into the shoes of directing that business. Property law advice, reviewing contracts of sales, Section 32, giving you advice about what the risks are, I guess, if you do move forward in the transaction, trademark registrations, gift and loan buybacks, bankruptcy advice, judgment, going to court about any sort of litigious matter, whether it's a business dispute or a family member has demanded a certain amount of money and you don't agree with it, or things like that. So any sort of situation that comes to your mind that could be a commercial dispute, we would be able to handle. And I guess, like, it's not limited to just like a list of services that we do. Like, we always are willing to listen to what the situation is, and we might not have done it before, but like at Aspire, we're all about learning about the job and learning new things and being able to help people where other traditional lawyers might not be able to help them. So Nikita, do you have much to add?
No, I think you've done a great job there. I was really only going to add that we find that a lot of clients sometimes come to us when things have, mind my French, hit the fan, shit's hit the fan, and like, you've now come to us and we need to react. But I have to say, my favorite type of client that I like to work with is the ones who come to us proactively seeking advice on what they can do. I like to think of it as like building your armor. So if you run a business and you need terms and conditions for your website, doing those things and implementing those things really help you to build your armor so that it protects you. Same with IP, those kinds of things. Like, litigation is not where you want to be. It's costs a lot of money, it's a lot of stress, and there's plenty that you can do to avoid that. So I think Alice did a good job in explaining everything that we do, but we're really passionate about trying to build people's armor. We've done a lot of, the terms and conditions and contract reviewing. We've done a lot of M&A deals and buying businesses. There's a whole lot of things that we can do, and we've done day in, day out. Yeah.
I think that idea, Nikita, of proactive advice and the similarities between what you both have just spoken about and us as financial advisors. I mean, the ideal, it's interesting that people tend to seek advice when they have a life event or a significant event. And, not all of those can be understood before they happen, but some of them can. Some of them can be preemptively addressed. And I think sort of small business advice is one of those where, if we could encourage anyone out there listening today, if you're planning on, going into business. I mean, I think I spoke with Claudia and Jessica and Sarah about family law and estate planning and how important it is to be ahead of the curve in terms of getting advice preemptively. Same with small business advice as well. Having shareholders agreements and business succession plans in place are just so pivotal, because things just aren't a problem until they're a problem. And I love what you said about actually putting some armor and protection on you and your business and surrounding yourself with the right people. I think one of the things that we've tried, and I think it's obvious that you as a business are trying to do as well, is to actually make sure that your clients are surrounded with like-minded professionals. They're surrounded with people that can actually provide complementary advice and support. And the way we have tried to do that is to make sure that those people that can provide, specific advice around, commercial advice, property advice, is there to complement what we do from a financial planning point of view. It's not to detract. And I think I love hearing you talking about the disruption of the industry, because I think that disruption of the industry is as much people being less protective of their own patch of dirt and thinking, going in with a very like a famine mindset when it comes to business and thinking that, there's not enough to go around. There's an enormous amount of business and opportunity to go around if people are willing to support their clients in the right way and actually introduce other positive third-party relationships to clients. I think it can add just so much value. And that's why, again, I really love hearing the way you talk passionately about what you do at Aspire and the services that you provide. Maybe just to get a little bit granular, you mentioned, Alice, just in relation to how you charge. And I know that on episode 42, we talked about this as a sort of unique sort of point of difference, but maybe I'll leave this open to whoever wants to answer it in terms of like how you charge for what you do. And also maybe you can also touch on, I think the DIY sort of online documentation that you have the opportunity with Aspire to make use of. So I'll leave that with you to answer however you like.
Yeah, sure. So all our pricing is fixed, and we're transparent from the start about what our fees are. And I guess like the whole idea of getting to know our clients is really getting an understanding of where the matter might end up, whether there's going to be complications, and whether there's, a lot more correspondence than your traditional back and forth negotiation that might be involved. And at that stage, Nikita and I, will have a team meeting and have an assessment about, how much time might be involved and what the value is to the client of us delivering the service. So after we have our initial consultation, so the first, if you do sign up for a consultation, the first 15 minutes is a phone call, and that's completely free, no obligation. And that's just a good conversation to get to know what exactly you're seeking. After that, Nikita and I will have a chat, and we'll reach out with a value proposal, which gives you 3 different packages to choose from. And you might be just seeking to review a contract and have some verbal advice, for example. But we have 3 packages that support you with the same service, but in 3 different levels of comprehensiveness. So the first package might be verbal advice, reviewing all the contract, the negotiations and all the correspondence to date, and providing some verbal advice through a Zoom consultation at some stage. And that's priced at a fixed rate, which would be the lowest of the 3 packages. The second package might be due diligence and doing PPSR searches over the company that you're engaging to go into business with or franchising, and also doing further terms and conditions for you to go into that, and then also negotiating on your behalf with the other side, rather than you having to go and take our advice and do it yourself kind of thing. And then the next package will be a whole inclusive, every 6 months we can do a 6 monthly review. How's everything going? Is there any issues? Has any dispute come up from the employees that you've taken on board from the last business? Has there been any issues? Have they asked for things that you didn't suspect, and how, give you some guidance about how to handle those types of situations. And then we can also offer the annual after that, so 6 months twice within that package. So we just want to make sure that the client, and a lot of the time the clients get our proposal and they're like, oh, I didn't even realize that I needed this. Like these types of services that are add-ons that are going to help me it's like when you subscribe for a PlayStation subscription and you got the gold, bronze and the silver, and you think you're just going to subscribe with the bottom one, the bronze, but then you realize, oh, actually I want this game as well, and that's going to make me a lot happier and feel happier with paying the subscription price altogether. So it's similar to that kind of model, and we don't do any time billing whatsoever. So all of the work that is included up until the scope finishes is like completely free phone calls. You've got our direct lines, you've got our direct email addresses. You don't have to go through reception each time or consult with a paralegal or secretary in order to get in touch with us. We're completely there to support you from start to finish in that scope, and there's no real complication or issue with us having to like say, oh, you've already had 2 phone calls, like you've only got 1 more. We don't have to like bring it down to that level of feeling uncomfortable in the relationship with our client, which a lot of law firms generally do. So it's a very different way of doing things, and it also gives us the flexibility and a good background and forecast to be able to do the work properly, like rather than thinking that we have to do it in a certain time frame and we've got to focus on other matters that are paying us so much more or things like that. Like it's all about just delivering a good service within its means and doing it over a time that you're free and flexible in order and feel comfortable in order to do so.
Yeah, I like that concept of the relationship being the center point of the advice that you provide, rather than it being a transaction, if you like. And I know, having spoken to a number of lawyers over the course of the last couple of years, all of them to a person would prefer to actually have a model that is, because they can see the value in having ongoing relationships with their client, rather than just being, super transactional and then never having an ongoing relationship with that client again. So again, hats off to you both and to the team at Aspire for really focusing on managing that ongoing relationship with clients. Because one of the things we know is that, clients' circumstances are so interwoven with other areas of their life, and it's not, if we think transactionally about someone, we're ultimately going to miss a significant part of their the value that we could add to their situation, or there's going to be another rock that we haven't sort of lifted up to have a look under, where there's an opportunity for us to add some value. So yeah, again, hats off to you in terms of that. Now, I thought I might close, Nikita, with you giving us a bit of a snapshot of how people can find the commercial and property team, yourselves at Aspire, or if you've got any other sort of legal needs, where can people find you on the interwebs? How can they get in contact with you? How would you like them to get in contact with you? And then I'll leave it to you for any closing comments to our listeners.
Yeah, of course. So you can connect with us on our website, which is aspirelawyers.com.au. We're on all social media, so you'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can even email Alice or myself. It's literally just nikita@aspirelawyers.com.au or alice@aspirelawyers.com.au, or give us a call, and the receptionist will, on the phone call, book in a 15-minute free call with us, and we'll have you already scheduled in. So very easy to connect with us, and yeah, we look forward to helping in whatever way we can, or even just having a chat with you too. That's fine as well.
And I think just to add on to that, so our locations are Melton, which is our head office. We've got Point Cook, which was basically moved from the Werribee one. And then there's Richmond as well. So we have a lot of locations and we're flexible. Oh, we also have a Geelong satellite office as well. So we're happy to come out to you if it's too difficult to get to a certain location. And we're also super flexible with online appointments, phone appointments, Zooms and things like that. In this day and age, everyone's busy. No one has time to take an hour or 2 out of the day just to travel and get ready for an appointment. We completely understand that, and we really value flexibility, and our clients do as well. So yeah, that's where we're located. And if you just want to come in and say hello, feel free to do so.
Very good. Well, Nikita, Alice, it's been a pleasure to have the two of you on today, as it was to have your other team members on previous episodes. I'm sure we could do a round 2 or round 3 at some point in the future, and maybe we can dive into some more technical content or talk about travel or whatever you might like to do. But again, from the team here at Burke Britain, I just want to say thanks for the relationship that we've developed over the last year or so. It's been fantastic. I love seeing what you're doing over at Aspire and the enthusiasm with which you do it. Any final closing comments or call to action to any of our listeners? Nikita, Alice, anything else you want to say before we close this one out?
I think just if you're feeling like you need to encourage yourself and build up the courage to go and speak to a lawyer about something that's going on, like just do it. Like, especially with our 15-minute free consultations, it's a no-brainer. Get some peace of mind, at least get an idea about what the way forward might be for you from a legal perspective, rather than lose sleep over it and keep encouraging yourself over a couple of months. And I know lots of people do that. They think that going to see a lawyer means it's just money out of the pocket. Getting an idea about what your rights are, where you stand, and what we can do for you is a really good starting point, just to get some peace of mind about something that might be going on in the commercial space in your life. So highly encourage it. And we're super friendly at Aspire, so come on board anytime.
Wonderful. Nikita, any closing thoughts?
No, I think Alice covered that really well. We're very friendly, and I promise we're not going to buy a head off or anything. So thank you so much for having us, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. And we really value our relationship with Burke Britain as well. And we're really looking forward to taking things forward in the future, and definitely lots of podcast episodes to come, I'm sure.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks again. And I look forward to speaking to you again on another podcast. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britain FP, or Google Burke Britain Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to, don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britain Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.